Hello, I'm Jermaine, your host of the Main No Doubt Show. I'm glad you're here with me today. And I was just, having a couple personal thoughts. But anyway, as the day goes, we'll get into that part. But I want to thank you all for being with me today. Now, biggest part of my topics for today is trust, hate, and revenge. I mean, they're very, very interesting topics, but I don't want to jump too deeply into that at this moment. I was digging into my own personal thoughts, and I was thinking, I was like, I'm like I don't know, like early in the morning, I usually spring to my feet and I'm ready to go and do something, because my brain activates as soon as my eyes open. I mean, it's not like a really sluggish moment. I mean, when I was younger, I used to like to, lounge around in bed, but now I'm like, man, there's a lot of things to do in the course of the day. So I was like, man, this is that time of season. This time of season, the sun is out most of the day, and the nights are a lot longer, and you can make a lot of progress. And I don't believe that these moments when you actually out and about, that you should waste any time whatsoever. I mean, get something done. It doesn't matter what it is. And I mean, like a lot of times I feel like I'm that Energizer Bunny. That Energizer Bunny that just keep going and going and going. And I really like that slogan of Nike, just do it. That's one of the best slogans that I thought that, anybody could come up with. Because, like, even when I was in high school, I used to always consider myself a verb, an action word, something that's always doing something. I mean, so if anybody sit back and, say they're bored, maybe they just don't have a bunch of the skill set that's necessary to actually keep them propelled into whatever other project or any future projects or whatever. So, I mean, without just that thought in itself, I take a bunch of vitamins, and I like my vitamins because they keep me supercharged, and it's like hard to get me to really sit still. So I really like to advocate my vitamins. I really love vitamins. Vitamin D, B, B12, B complex, whatever, essentials. So beside that, um, as far as like this time of year, I was like, man, good grief. I'm like that. When it switches seasons and it starts to get warmer, I'm kind of like a runaway slave. I like to just jump up and go, and I'm like, hey, you can't keep me still. I'm not gonna stay here. I gotta go. I gotta go. I gotta go. So that's me all day, and I'm like, I have all of these, multitudes of thoughts, and I'm like, hey, which one can I handle? Which one do I want to address for the moment? But I have like multiple thoughts and multiple conversations about different things throughout the course of the day. So, man, when you talk about somebody, I mean, like I say, I am like a runaway slave, because it's hard for me to stay in my house, and people wonder, oh, what happened? It's almost like I get ADD, or maybe I do have ADD. I don't even want to even dig too deep into that, but it's hard for me to pay attention once I leave out the door, because I'm like, it's so many things that attract my mindset that I want to engage in, like all of it. I mean, I'm interested in everybody's jobs, their occupations, or what they do. I mean, I don't really want to dig into the person's mind itself, but I like the creativity that comes from all the different jobs that's out here. So some are very slow. I don't really like slow jobs because they don't keep you active. So beside that, I think the people in my house look at me. It's like, hey, you should be my servant. Especially when I have downtime. I'm like, hey, my downtime. I'm like, I like to get things done. So I can't do your list of things that which you choose not to, tackle when you have the time to do it. I mean, watching TV seems like a awesome event, but a lot of times I don't find myself watching TV. Not unless um, it's mind stimulating. You know, it's got kind of educational or something like that. But I mean, I like to watch wildlife and all that different type of stuff also. Um, I mean, but if you can, just have a moment, just like I was on my porch yesterday, and I had all these little baby squirrels running around, and one came up on the step, and I was like, oh, you must really don't know the concept of humans right now, do you? So they had like a swarm of squirrels just running all over everywhere. I'm like, good grief, it's almost like rats. But it was just kind of weird to see that many baby squirrels all over everywhere. So they've contributed to the world's population as we know. So so I mean, you hear them and they fly. Good grief, they kind of like miraculous, like little creatures, because they do some high soaring in the sky and jumping from branch to branch, and you'll be surprised that they don't fall. That is the amazing part about it. I mean, they manage to make it throughout all the leaps and high trapeze acts that they do. So anyway, now one of my things that I want to address for today is the hatred. Hatred is a very deep and I guess more or less passionate word. I mean, people use the word. I mean, but it really has to dig deep into the bed of your emotions. And see, I mean, as for me, like I like to start the day with laughter or something, so it doesn't bring forth a negative energy towards the rest of my day. So for someone to sit and marinate in hatred, it just doesn't seem like it resonates very well in the way that I like to believe that life could be, if you say this is the way life should be. So anyway, but a lot of people really don't understand the magnitude of the word hatred, because if you dig that deep into your brain, I mean, because people say into your heart, but it's really your brain that actually perceive and conceive of these thoughts that we bring forth. So you dig deep into your heart of thinking to concentrate wholeheartedly on how much you may hate an object or you may hate someone. I mean, it's like that in itself is mentally draining. It can pour all the energy out of you and then leave you in a more sedative type state that you cannot come out. It's like being in a funk that you can never roll out of. And some people focus all of their attention on so many negative aspects of a lot of different things. I mean, I know we have a tendency to get caught up in some negative activity at some points during the course of the day. And we all have a point that we can actually hate something, somewhere, somehow. But, I mean, I can actually say I run into a lot of wild drivers. I do a lot of driving, and I drive 18-wheelers, all kinds of stuff. I do a lot of different things. So overall, when I have to think about it, I get aggravated. I get mad. I mean, I kind of hate the way people drive, especially when they do things that may cause themselves harm or somebody else. I mean, some things are accidental and you make mistakes. Everybody's not perfect. But when I see different things like that, I can actually say I hate the way people drive. I mean, because I drive in Massachusetts a lot, and it seems like a lot of them are suicidal. And I'm like, man, do you really understand what you just did? I mean, I hate the way they drive, but truthfully, I love the people attitudes and everything in Massachusetts. I mean, it is a wide variety of different attitudes. But a lot of them are like really abrupt. They're up front and forward. You don't have to guess what's going on in their mind. So they tell you if they don't like you, they don't like you. There's no hiding anything. And I like that about people is when they're really up front and forward with things. So therefore, I'm not really in a state of saying I hate people. I just hate the way they drive. I hate the fact that they seem like they're suicidal. That's what I get out of the whole deal. But overall, when it comes down to people and their feelings and emotions, they have a tendency to focus on things that they don't like about a person so intensely that it draws forth all of the emotional mind state of a person to actually say, I hate you. Hating people is like one of the most kind of like devastating blows that you can even bring up on yourself, to even speak the words or even think the thought. I mean, yes, some people irritate me or whatever, and I mean, I've learned over the years, and it took me a little bit of time for me to understand this, but to actually, put myself in a state where I was actually saying I hate something or somebody, it actually made me kind of like a reclusive ball. I mean, I ball up in this ball, and I didn't like anything or anyone to contradict the things that I think that should be in place. I think that was more or less the line. And see, once I started studying, I was studying a lot. I've read a lot of books, all kind of stuff, just to understand, what it took to, understand the mastery of a lot of the philosophers and all kind of other stuff. And a lot of people like to shun away philosophy for a lot of other things, to say it's just preconceived thoughts. But for centuries, these philosophers have actually helped a lot of people find resolve in a lot of intense situations, even in times of war. So when people go around talking about hatred, well, you hate something. You hate just because you formulate that off an opinion of what you think. So just because you have an opinion doesn't mean that it's correct. So I mean, I've talked about opinions in some of my other topics and stuff from other shows, but opinions are related to feelings and desire and want. So when we tie that all in, that's all of those feelings, desires, and wants formulate your opinion to a point of hatred. And when you really get into hating something, you are mentally draining yourself. And if you concentrate too hard on hatred, it can actually destroy you, because it becomes stress to your brain, in which you are worrying about every aspect of a idea of why you hate something so much, where you can actually destroy yourself when you get to a point where you feel like life is not worth anything, because you focus so much of your attention on the negativity of draining yourself to the point where you hate something. That's very intense. So after you dig back into the points of where I was talking about philosophy, it helps you understand that over time, once you understand what the possibilities of drawing yourself from that point of where you're focusing on that hatred, you can actually focus on, fine tuning your own brain to a point where you don't actually hate anything, and you can maneuver through life without worrying about how much something, affects you, emotionally, to stimulate the negativity within your brain. And once you understand the philosophies, you actually find balance. But some people think that they found balance on still being able to focus on how much they hate things, and then they try to create some type of equal remedy for balancing hatred and, their emotional status. So, if you really want to, hate something, find something else to do. Because, there's enough hatred in this world. That's why we have wars. Because, if people didn't have their own personal opinions, to think about what somebody else is doing, yeah, do we all want things, to happen? No. But there's a lot of things that's been occurring since way before I was born, that's for sure, and definitely hundreds and hundreds of years ago, in which we can't even account for besides what's in some book somewhere. So people have developed so much hatred that they forgot how to love. And see, so what we have now is a false imagery of love. What can you do for me? What can I do for you? Instead of saying, hey, why don't we focus on love? And a lot of people don't even know what love is, because most people think it's all about, what can you provide for me? So if you really want to focus on love, focus on the things that you could compromise on and do together. Therefore, you won't contemplate on these acts of revenge, because when you focus on hatred actually propels you to do mischievous things, right, against other people or against just situations at hand. Because you might not like a situation, you might hate the situation, but then it makes you become malicious, and you can act out, just like people in riots and stuff like that. Yeah, you're passionate about it, and you see how these events tie itself in. You're passionate about it because your emotions have become overwhelming, and then you've developed such negativity towards an activity, and then you end up doing something malicious like hurting someone else, or like people throw Molotov cocktails and all kinds of stuff in crowds and blowing up cars, and you see all kinds of stuff happening all around the world because people become violent from their emotional negative status, in which it pushes people to do things that are ungodly. So do you want a group of people that become continuously violent because of their own passions of hatred and negativity? That's not what you really want. So revenge digs really deep. It digs deep into that emotional status, in which it makes you do things that you really don't want to do. Now, some people just like to be malicious, and they like to seek revenge because why? That hatred dwells within their flesh. It permeates through their skin, and it's kind of like, the burst of the sun. Because a lot of people, like to see or feel the radiant heat from the sun. It's almost like that with hatred. You can see it in people's eyes because, their attitude displays it. People sit back and they contemplate and premeditate thoughts of how they can get at people. And that's not even important. If people take so much attention off of that, and there's a lot of people that seek the thrill of revenge. I mean, revenge is, I guess, nice if you really want to be, a very violent, malicious person. But overall, focusing in on how to get back at somebody just because you feel like they did you wrong, or you felt like you've somebody's been unjust. There are a lot of things that, or multiple events or situations or people that you can get revenge on just because of, you're mad. And see, if you dwell in anger, and you regret, the reasons why you were born. There are a lot of different reasons, why you would like to seek revenge. And some people don't even, they won't acknowledge the fact that they're trying to, seek this revenge. They just do it, and they will look in your face and smile at you every day. But yet and still, that revenge, is permeating through the skin. It displays in every action that they make, the way people talk. They do things. They do things that actually you can see, and if you open your mind and you're more optimistic, you can see these things occurring right before your eyes. But when it does occur, right, you got to learn how to subtract it from the situation. Therefore, you don't react in their negative frame of mind, and they don't bring you down into the negative state in which they are in. So you got to understand how to handle certain aspects of hatred and revenge. And see, even though it may be revenge, you never know what kind of state that's going to come in. That's why you see people commit murders, because they know that they didn't like something somebody else did. Unfortunately, right? Being mad at somebody that bad, to the point where you hate somebody so bad where you got to kill them, that's another act of, extreme hate. And really, that is one of the worst crimes you can do. See, if we focus most of our attention on how we can improve ourselves, right? You can't really have room for hatred. I really see it. I mean, it took me a lot of time to really understand this, because it's not like it came to me overnight. No, it took me a good little while, and I realized that focusing on hating someone, right, really took a lot out of me. And being young, you have all this energy, and sometimes you have a lot of wild, sporadic thoughts. And see, if you don't know how to fine tune your thoughts, meditation is a good way to do so. But meditate on things that make sense, things that you may hear. Like I say, some of those philosophies, they actually work really well. They work well with, the fact that sometimes the thoughts and things that you get from other students, right? Just because these students are here doesn't mean that they actually live long enough to understand or become wise. Some of them are. But just because you're, smart in one field or aspect or subject, let's start at school. You're good at English, but you're bad at math and social studies and American history, anything like that. But English is your topic. But it doesn't mean that you're a master of all the other ones, right? Same thing is true as when you're in the world. People, they are basically in their profession, whatever field that is. They may be very smart in that field, but it doesn't mean that they understand every other field or profession that's out here. So, how do you understand things, and how do you not, have this hatred or revenge? Even though you're not so great at other topics or situations or classes or professions or whatever. If you don't know, maybe you want to do your own research on a little bit of all of it, because the more you know and the more you understand, the more you can actually, have a conversation with people of different calibers of life. Will you enter in that profession or in that study, a field of study of school or whatever? Maybe never, but the little bits that you know of each category, each situation, it makes you valuable. It makes you very valuable. And it's just like a lot of people deal with depression, and I know that's one of the bigger things that a lot of people deal with, especially in the wintertime and any other time. But being able to deal with depression, it actually helps for when you know a variety of different things. And once you learn how to, get your thoughts under control, you can actually work yourself out of depression by knowing of a lot of different things. Sometimes people feel like that they're the only ones that's out here in this world, and they're the only ones dealing with depression, and they're the only ones dealing with whatever that one thing that really has you down. But you're not the only one. I mean, there's like a billion of people out here that's probably going through the same thing that you're going through right now. But unless you open your mouth, and that's one thing about being depressed, most people don't open their mouth. They don't communicate. They don't express what they may be going through, what they're feeling inside, because you got to go through those feelings and everything just to understand who you are. But if you speak about it and you learn about all of these different things, right, you build value in yourself, and other people like to be around you. One thing I can say is that, sometimes, I get to a point where I see people and they all may seem gloomy, but then sometimes when I step out of my little comfort zone, right, and I start talking, and mingling with different people, maybe I may not want to talk to a lot of people, but then I start out with one-on-one conversations, and sometimes a little more comfortable, especially if you think you're a type of person that really don't like to talk to people. This is a line of communication. You open up, you talk to one person, you gain that person's trust. When you have that communication barrier broken and you start talking. So you get to that point, and then they open up to you, then you learn a little bit about them. They learn a little bit about you, and you start interacting. It's called networking. When you start networking the right way, then you start meeting other people with other interesting ideas. Some ideas you may not take to. It may not be for you. Everything on the face of this earth is not for every man. It's not for every woman. It's just for you to actually know that it exists, but it may not be of your taking. Don't do it. So, like I say, you start developing trust. Trust is one of those other major topics. It's because trust goes a long way. And once you build a permanent, well, not a permanent, but if you build a semi relationship with a person, friendship, relationship, whatever, trust goes a long way, long as you know that the things that you say are valid. Don't take somebody else's word and put it with your words and then try to make it, to be the truth. And then, you start using other people's information, as the truth. And then you start spreading that with other people. And then, it's like, oh, it was the truth. But then somewhere in there, you used that information as your own information. And then people took that you actually put a lot of effort into what you were saying or doing, so they trust you. They trust you based on your characteristics of how you display yourself. So if the information that or the things that you were doing was not your original material, and they find out later that it had nothing to do with you, you just broke the trust, and that you have a bond in trust. That hey, if a person, values, things that you do or things that you say, then they will hold to you very tightly, because 9 times out of 10 they don't want to really let you go, because they really understand that whatever it is that you're trying to get across, they trust you. Now, a lot of people are attention seekers, and they just like to talk to gain attention, and then they want to feel elevated in ego. And I think I've talked about that before. But overall, well, sometimes people talk a little too much about things that's not even relevant to whatever may be going on. So they tell different stories that may not be, on the line of accuracy or anything like that. So people may be engaged or excited by the things that people tell. I mean, these people may generate as telling us these stories, but we don't know if it's the truth. So, we take it, and sometimes some people develop a trust off of that, but then that trust may not be, a valid trust. So, sometimes we go through life and we just don't know at all what and who to trust. And once that trust bond is broken, it's hard to get it back. See, some people open up doors, and it's like, and I'm not picking on any group, but usually a lot of women, they let you in, and they trust a lot. And then somewhere in there, we just give an example of a man. A man come along, and he tells the woman everything that she wants to hear. I love the way this, and I love this and all that stuff, and we can do this and we can do that, and I will make you have the world and all this other stuff. But then the man to sit back on the other end and say, okay, all right, well, I don't really have to put forth enough effort to make her the queen of my life, or I'm not gonna. I've said all this stuff to her, and I'm not going to take her to all these extravagant places, because first and foremost, I have not the energy. I don't have the willpower to go through and do all this stuff. I just wanted to captivate her at that moment. And see, when somebody started making false promises, it could go vice versa. It could be a woman making the same type of impression. And that's the thing about impressions, is people always trying to make a good impression in the beginning, but they never continue on with the impression throughout the lifespan of whoever or whatever kind of relationship they hold with other people. And that also breaks bonds of trust also. So over the years, people find out that they were not really on the same line because of all of these, trust issues. Because if you're feeding people all inaccurate information, then the trust goes out the door. People commit acts, like I say, revenge, against each other. Some of them are blatant, revenge tactics. Some of them are subtle, and you really, if you don't have the insight to things, you will never ever see the subtle attacks that people do. And because some of them are manipulative, and you can't see, because they might manipulate other things and other people into the environment to obstruct your goals or your visions or whatever it may be, So what happens is, they do all of these little bitty things, that you may not detect, especially if you are like, very active and you don't really pay attention to the fine tuning. Just because you pay attention to the fine tuning of other things and negative things that people do, doesn't mean that you get caught up on that way of thinking. You just know that it exists, but you don't focus your emotions and feelings on the subtle acts of revenge, because those subtle acts of revenge will actually propel you if you get sucked into the vortex of it. It's almost like a magnet, and it just sucks you into that negativity. But you can see that those subtle acts of revenge, and if you don't act upon them, and like I say, you got to retract. You got to retract. I don't care what age you are. I mean, people think that adults got everything figured out. You got kids out here like, oh, they got it all figured out. They older. No, adults don't have things figured out either. They guess, and a lot of people in their professions or whatever they do a lot of guessing also. But overall, right, you got to retract. So be it what it is, just so you don't get caught up. But you know that somewhere in there, a trust bond has been broken, and that's what happens when you had the hatred and revenge, and trust, becomes a very rare thing that you can ever find nowadays. And being able to find trust or someone you can trust is very difficult. I don't care if you're poor or rich or somewhere in between, right? Being able to trust anybody, right, has become a very difficult thing, because a lot of people have lost a lot of their moral ethics, and I mean, will we be able to trust people 100%? I don't know. It's like I say, it's better to just say you don't know. I had that on one of my shows, but yeah, it's just better to say you don't know. But if you can find somebody that you can trust at least, 60 to 65% of the time, that's speaking a lot, for nowadays. Because trying to find 100%, I don't even know. I really don't know. But somewhere to about 65%, they're worth holding on to. And usually, when I can speak on that aspect, I believe that I know about 5 people that I really trust on that level. Now, those people, I say, hey, I will do anything for you, regardless to what. If I can, possibly do it, I would do it for you. If I can't do it for you, I will try to see if I can come up with a solution. And if I can't come up with a solution, I'm gonna actually figure out a way that we can put both of our heads or all of our heads together, however way it works. I would like to figure out what it is I can do to help. I would like to help a lot of people. And that part of me, I know I can trust. But everybody out here does not want help, So I can't force myself to help people that does not want help. Now, what I can say is I wish I can trust everyone. And sometimes it's events of our past that makes us not be able to trust anyone. People have developed a bunch of uncertainties about themselves, in which it made trust a very hard thing to focus on. So, if by chance we can get to a point that we can, put down a lot of differences so we can end up trusting each other, it will make at least a lot of things on the face of this planet work a lot better, because I've met people from a lot of different places that I really like, And when I hear people say, I don't like them because they didn't come to this country, they came to this country, they don't learn uh, our language and all this stuff, that's selfishness. I like people genuinely for who they are. You know, as long as that does not conflict with, you know, other things that I think that's not right. Because, yeah, it's a matter of my opinion, what's not right and what's wrong, but I don't have to speak that right or wrong. But if I feel like a person is in that negative realm again, then more or less I'm going to retract from them. And I'm not going to engage in any further conversation or contact with that person if I don't have to, because I know that that can bring out some negativity of my own. So, to avoid a lot of situations, that's what I do. I retract. And I'd rather not say anything to you than to be in the midst of you with a lot of other things that I see going on this planet and on the news and the media. I don't necessarily have to be around negative people if I don't want to. And I don't like to be around people that use a lot of forms of manipulation to try to get what they want because of their own self-greed. So, as far as anything else, you want to talk about anything these topics that I have, you know, email me at enjoyyourlife4313@gmail.com. I really would like to hear from a lot of people. I just want to know. I want to know what you think. I want to know what's in your mind. What stimulates you? What motivates you? What can, even if it doesn't motivate you, what puts you at a point of hatred? What actually do you see in revenge? Even if it's truthful, I don't really care what it is. I mean, I'm a real person. I don't hide behind, you know, false images. You know, what is it that can destroy trust? That's what I want to see. I want to see your answers in that. Talk to me. Enjoy your life. 4313, excuse me. Enjoy your life 4313@gmail.com. I'm Jermaine. I'm your host, and like Chucky, I'm your friend to the end. Heidi ho. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, it seemed like it fit in right at that point. So anyway, I would like to hear from you. I'm glad you were here with me today, and you know, I'll see you next time. Have a great day.